It's on.
Hi, my name is Antonio. Welcome to my restaurant, Trenchside. Come on in. You know, just a little while ago, I would have been too scared to post this video, worried about what government and their supporters might do. But I see more and more people posting and sharing the exact same way I feel. Can you imagine fighting for freedom and then being too scared to speak out against the government you fought for? This year is our garden area. Before water restrictions, we had grass. Before lockdown, we had customers. Let's go to our courtyard. We've started a wall of protest. Come on in. On that side there, we have our bar and dance floor area. And this is our courtyard. It's a large space with lots of ventilation, free-flowing air. We have our COVID-19 spaces between the table. We can probably seat about 20 people, so roughly about the same as a taxi. This year, it's my list. See, it's a rant, and my clever partner has asked me to actually write it down because he knows that I get slightly passionate when I discuss politics and I go off topic. And I lose sight of what we started talking about. That there is my partner. It's Xavier. Would you believe? Wait, I'm going to stand next to him. We're roughly the same age. Yeah. He's already had a stroke, a heart attack, and just before he retired as a maths teacher. I think his slightly aged look and poor health might have something to do with him working for 30 years as a teacher and vice principal in our public schools, educating our kids, struggling with government red tape, and well, you know, some parents struggle to be parents, so our teachers are expected to assume that role as well. He gave up his pension and life savings to open up this restaurant with me. I only have a standard 8, what you guys might refer to as a grade 10. So like most ambitious people, I got to where I am by working hard, saving, sacrificing for the last 25 years. To get this business to be as successful as it has been before lockdown, we both worked our asses off and made huge sacrifices, much the same way I'm sure many other people in our situation have. We used to have 48 people working for us, besides DJs, comedians, event organizers, handymen, and any other people that just needed an odd job. We now only have 2 staff members. Yes, 2. Besides our staff that are no longer working, we also hosted regular fundraisers for students, social awareness campaigns, student meetings, markets, a platform for our young artists to perform and make some cash. But more than that, we were also a safe place for everyone to get together socially and discuss issues that plague our youth, issues that the government should have fixed ages ago. While I've had plenty of reason over the years to be angry at our government, I will try and make this message as much as possible about lockdown and about some of the comments you and your honorable members have made during this devastating time period. On a side note, guys, you should really discuss changing the title you gave yourselves as honorable. None of you know what it means. Everything I mention here is easily found on reputable Google sources and may not so reputable SABC, our very unbiased broadcasting system. I've also tried really hard not to use any profanity, but by now, most of you know that when we discuss SA politics, this is not always possible. First, let me start off by saying I fought to get the ANC in power, and like many others, we risked our lives and those of our families fighting against the apartheid government. I will never regret fighting against the oppressive apartheid government. I cannot say the same about the ANC. As you can imagine, when the ANC finally came into power, it was a very proud and emotional day for most people. The ANC was our savior. The ANC could do no wrong in our eyes, but we were wrong. I really wish we knew then what we know now when it came to voting the ANC into power. If only we had known that when we shouted the slogan, "Power to the people," it actually meant all power to the ANC and F the people. Recently I saw a post on Facebook by one of my friends that pretty much sums up how our response has changed over the years when people talk down on the ANC, saying things like, the ANC do not know what they're doing, they will steal everything and leave the country messed up. In the 90s, our reply to these people would be, go F yourself, you don't know what you're talking about, you're just a stupid racist. In early 2000, our reply would be, well, it's only been a few years, give them a chance, you will see. Just before Zuma, our response was, well, you know, they're just getting rid of some of the bad apples, they will get it right. Soon we stopped replying. We became silent as the ANC were proving them correct daily. For me, personally, over the years, as my belief in the ANC has slowly eroded and reality set in, my once proud stance on the ANC has turned to shame and anger. I blamed myself. I blamed the people. How could we have not seen this coming? We could have done something different. Why did we make it so easy for them? We should have fought back. It took me a while before I started putting the blame where it belonged, with the ANC. We laugh and we joke because it's how many of us try to deal with the pain and the sad reality that the ANC has allowed its people to continue to be raped, and in most cases not only have they been the instigators but also the perpetrators of the rape of our people. They muffle out our screams for help with their dirty hands, saying it's apartheid's fault. Now during lockdown, we once again see that same dirty hand coming to muffle out our screams to say it's apartheid's fault. It's time we fight back. Shout, no, not this time, not again. We're fighting back. We will no longer bleed for you. Mr. Ramaphosa, by the time you did your lockdown, anyone that had been watching the news would have known that something was about to happen. We had already seen a month and a half before lockdown, hundreds, if not thousands of people returning from China's infected area at our airports, telling us how deadly, how vicious the virus is. So by the time you and your lockdown come into place, in my opinion, it was already too late. But you said we needed 3 weeks of lockdown to prepare hospitals, medical personnel for COVID, and from what we had heard, it sounded reasonable. Despite how we felt about the ANC, we listened, knowing this was for the greater good. Some of us were skeptical that it would only be 3 weeks, but why would you lie to us about something this important? We should have taken the ANC's reputation into account. 10 weeks later, you tell us that you have known all along that the lockdown would only delay the spread of the virus, and there's no way for us to stop it. 4 months after the start of lockdown, our hospitals and staff are still not ready, with more corruption and mismanagement of funds. By lying to us, telling us the lockdown is only 3 weeks, many people used it as time off, taking holiday pay and using it to keep their family entertained. Many went out, bought luxury items to keep themselves occupied during those 3 weeks. If you had been honest with us, I'm sure they would have used their cash sparingly and budgeted. While our health departments say they are struggling to find ways to slow down this pandemic, here's an idea. How about those houses you promised? That would help. How about running water? That would help. Electricity, that would most definitely help. How about any of the promises the ANC has made over the last 26 years? Any of them would help slow down this infection rate. You say you want us to use this opportunity while we are all suffering to forge a new economic path. So while we suffer and you sit in your ivory tower, you want to implement something that should have started 26 years ago. You know what would have been a better idea? Maybe instead of the ANC stuffing their own pockets and putting the country into economic ruin, maybe, just maybe, you should have focused on building up your people economically. You have admitted that corruption has cost SA 1 trillion rand. And that was only over a 4-year period. You say this as if you were not there. Well, if you were not there, where were you? Asleep like so many of your honorable members? Or maybe just partying it up on the taxpayers' dime? Okay, Xavier, I know. Okay, my partner's pointing out that I'm again going off topic here. Okay, so when you say we lost 1 trillion to corruption, most of us cannot comprehend what 1 trillion rand is. Here, let me show you. Wait. 1 trillion. I was going to write it out numerically, but it's actually faster to just spell it out. That's how big the number is. Let me explain further. If we take every theft, including all the cash in transit heists over the last 26 years, this will still not amount to the 1 trillion we have lost to ANC corruption over 4 years. Now, I've seen plenty of these robbers getting shot, killed, jailed. However, I cannot say the same about your members, who have done far worse. In the 80s, we had a saying, "Don't steal from the government, it hates competition." I guess that saying still applies today. You say before the economy is rebuilt, young people will be the ones most affected by job losses and closure of businesses due to COVID-19 pandemic. No, sir. This is due to ANC failures. It has nothing to do with COVID-19. The few businesses that you want to affect belong to a few white businessmen that are on your level. When I say your level, I mean they are all multi-millionaires and billionaires, who, if they eventually lose their businesses because of this reformation you're asking for, you will, guess what? There will still be millionaires and billionaires. They will get into their limos, jets, yachts, and sail off into the sunset without batting an eyelid. But what about us, who have, without the help of the ANC, have built ourselves up in our own businesses, have worked most of our lives and been employing the people you had promised jobs to? You waited till now to take it away. Tell me, what do? I only have a standard 8. I cannot go into politics. I stopped stealing ages ago. My wife has been working really hard for me not to be an asshole. So politics is out. So what do people like me do, Mr. President? You have asked our youth to overhaul their economy. But this was your responsibility for the last 26 years. They tried fighting for their education, and the ANC mocked them and answered them with bullets and tear gas and jail time. You asked them to become once again radical and go back to their former glory days. I remember those glory days. They were not so glorious. Why would you ask our youth to once again go through that struggle? We already did it. All you had to do was follow through. And if they do become radical, what then? Will you be sending in your police, your army, to humiliate them, to beat them, to kill them, like you have done, like you have been doing, like Marikana? Now, in my research on Marikana, I know 153 million rand was spent on the inquiry into Marikana, which findings were ignored. I know that 34 people were killed, 78 people were wounded, 250 people were arrested. This is besides everyone else that was killed for protesting prior to this. What I could not find is how many police were arrested. I'll get back on topic now, don't worry. I believe your wealth, like most privileged people, has blinded you to the struggle of your people, Mr. President. Before your election, you took a train ride with your security. It was late and it broke down and it angered you. This is not new. This is not even close to the biggest struggle our people face daily. Every time I see you on TV, you bring up gender-based violence. But this too is not new. I'm sure you remember, Kwesi, you remember, you said you believed her. But why only speak up 10 years later? Why stay silent during a trial? And for years after a trial, yes, her trial, because at not one moment do I think that Jacob Zuma was on trial. Do you remember what the ANC supporters and members like Malema called her and how they intimidated her and before and after and during the trial? I'm going back on topic now. If you truly care about this issue plaguing our society, then tell me, how does a 2-year-old get raped in hospital? There is so much wrong with what happened in this case. It's sickening. But again, this is not new. To date, we have about 5,000 deaths of COVID-19. Do you know what might help us fight COVID? Food. According to Dr. Tracy Ledger of WITS, 1,500 to 2,000 children die of starvation in hospital. But a further 9,000 die outside of hospital every year. According to some stats, 53 children die every day of starvation. So how do you call for economic reform now when you know that these numbers will increase? When you know you're going to be killing more people? How does your government suspend a feeding program during lockdown when most people have lost their jobs? Why are you taking away jobs when for years you have been promising us more jobs? Mr. President, you say you want this time, this opportunity, while we are suffering for economic reform. I say no. I say we need ANC reform. I say it is time to be honest. I say it's time for compassion. I say it's time for our parliament to start behaving with honor and earn their title as honorable.